Okay, so welcome to your first flipped assignment. What that means, in case we haven't discussed it in class yet, or you're not quite sure, our flipped assignments are those that we actually do the learning outside of the classroom, and once you've learned a little bit about the concept, we bring it back into the classroom to practice and learn more about it. Our flipped assignments are going to appear every once in a while this semester and next semester, and they are reserved for those really important concepts, the ones that if we don't know them, we're in a lot of trouble because they are going to be with us for the entire time that we learn French. So our first concept that fits into that category is what you see in your guided notes section, pronouns, and more specifically, subject pronouns. So our subject pronouns, as we say in French, are les pronoms sujets. Say that with me. Les pronoms sujets. That U in sujet is a really weird letter, and we'll talk about that because we're going to hear it one more time as we go through today with our flipped lesson. Subject pronouns are something that we have in English. They're something that we have in French, and they serve the same purpose in both languages. They replace the noun that we don't want to repeat. So, for example, if I'm talking about my friend, that is a way of replacing the name for my friend. So if my friend was named Marie, I can say my friend instead of Marie. Or I could say she, as in elle. She likes to go shopping. Those are all words for the same thing or the same person. And she is an example of a subject pronoun. It's when we're not using another noun, and it's not when we're using the person's name, if it is a person. It's when we're using a specific word that you see on this list on this diagram. So, the first one we have there is I, you, he or it, she or it, we, you again, which I'll explain why in just a second for that, and then they. So let's get started with our guided notes. When we do guided notes, when you're doing a flipped assignment, flipped lesson, same thing, you have the choice of what speed we go. So this is a recording, it's a video. You can play it at whatever speed you want. You can press pause, you can rewind, you can go back, you can even fast forward if you've listened to it or watched it already and you already know that part. So decide how you're going to take notes with the videos. You can press pause and write stuff in, or you can go along with the video, and then you can always go back and watch it again. That has a great advantage too, because not only do we have to be able to spell these words that we're going to be learning, we also need to be able to say them, and that's even more important than being able to spell them, because to learn a language means to learn how to communicate in a different language, not just how to write. So let's go ahead and get started with just today's date. Remember, with our binder and our notes, we need to be as organized as possible. So, for today's date, if you want to write it the French way, you're going to take the number for the day of the month. So let's say it's the 7th. You're going to put that first. Then the number for the month. So if it's the 9th month of the year, September. And then the year. That's how we do that with the date. So, for our binder section, we're going to write automne. Automne. It looks like autumn. Automne. We have our binder divided into the 4 seasons, and automne is our first season. Now, as we talk about our subject pronouns, we have this diagram divided a couple different ways. So the first thing is we're going to write the word singular above that first column there. This side is singular, which means it's reserved for one person. We can only use these to talk about one person. And if you're any good at predicting, then on the other side, drum roll please, is plural. We have this diagram set up this way because when I join a group, we get together and we have a lot of fun. When you are with your friends, you all are in school, okay? And if there are a bunch of he's around, they are going to a movie. Okay, let's get down to the good stuff. Let's learn some of these French words. We're going to start with the singular side with the word I. So I'm going to write this and I want you to say it in French as you're writing it, and even give it a couple different times if what you're saying doesn't match what I'm saying. So I'm writing je. Je. Notice I didn't capitalize the J of je. The only time we're going to capitalize any of these words that we are learning today is if it's at the beginning of a sentence. Unlike in English, where our I is always capitalized, or at least it should be, in French the only time this word would be capitalized is if we have it at the beginning of a sentence. Okay, let's go ahead and continue. Your next one is tu. There's that U again. Tu. So we heard it in les pronoms sujets, and now we have tu. Tu meaning you. The closest we get in English to that U sound is in the word cute. So basically you're going to say the word cute and freeze your mouth right after you get past the U, and then try to flip it. Instead of saying cute, you're going to say tu. Okay? That takes a little bit of practice. After that we have the word for he or for it. This pulls double duty. Repeat after me. Il. Il. We have she or it. Elle. And then we're going to actually add one here. We have on. It looks like on. On is a French word. It fits into the same category as he, she, it, and we treat it as a singular word. It's a very proper way of saying we or one. At least it sounds proper in English. It's pretty informal and pretty relaxed in French. So on that side we have je, tu, il, elle, on. Okay, remember as I said, when we are in a group, I am with other people. So our word for we is nous. Nous. This is where it gets a little easy. Our second word for you is vous. So they rhyme. Vous. Explanation on those two U's coming up in just a second. Let's finish the column though. For they, we're going to keep that tradition of having more than one word. For they, we have il. Sounds familiar. Look at the spelling though. Elle. Sounds familiar. We have an extra letter. There is no on with an S. It's not O-N-S anywhere here, okay? These are the only two words for they. Now, I'll explain this as well in just a second. Before I explain that, let me deliver on my promise. Why do we have two U's? Well, let's start with the word tu. It's in the singular column, which means if I'm talking to just one person, I'm going to use tu. And maybe I don't know that person. Well, that's where it gets a little different, because the tu form, as we call it, is informal. Informal means I know the person, we're friends, they're my age. I can use tu. But let's say I don't know the person, or let's say it's someone older than me, they deserve a little extra respect, then I'm going to actually use the formal with them, address them formally. So I'm going to say vous, even if it's just one person. So again, tu I use with people I know when I'm talking to one person. Vous I use with one person that I don't know, that needs a little bit extra respect. If, however, I have a group of friends, I know everyone, but they're in a group, if I want to get their attention, I'm going to say vous. Vous, hey, you, as in hey, you guys. Okay. Let's talk about il with an S and elle with an S now. So when we do, I'm going to start with elle. When we do elle, meaning they, I want you to think of another word that looks kind of similar to elle, and that's the word fille. Fille in French means all girls. So we've added an F and we switched out one of the E's for an I. Fille. Okay? Elles are filles. They are girls. The other one here, il with an S, I'm going to write the word garçon. Garçon is the opposite gender of fille. Garçon. Boys. You'll notice I put a little squiggle below my C. I didn't do that on accident. Go ahead and put a little squiggle at the bottom of your C as you see there. So garçon with an S is boys. So il with an S, I can have that be for boys, as in a group of all boys, or il with an S, that's my safety net. If I have a group of boys and girls, mixte, un groupe mixte, then I'm going to use that one. So we have a little bit of practice to do. Not only do we need to practice how to say these, we also need to practice how to spell them. So for saying them, we just have to remember a couple things. Let's look at our plural side. We have nous, vous, il, elle. Notice I crossed out or highlighted the S's at the end. We don't say them. We're not going to say nous. We're not going to say vous. No, we keep that nous and vous and il and elle. For je, we need to just make sure it's not j'ai or a really long je sound. Don't want it to sound flat. And then you can always practice that tu a little bit more. That's kind of a sound that comes with time. Don't be worried if you don't get it right away. I'm not going to be worried for you. All right. Very last thing. What is the purpose of having you repeated in the diagram? I'm reading that question right below the diagram. In order to be sure that you understood what you just learned, answer these two questions. Try to give as much information as you can and make sure that you are answering the question. You're not being vague and trying to skunk your way out of it. And then explain the difference between the two French words for they. So that might take a little bit of translating. On the back side of this page, there are 3 more things that you need to do in order to be prepared for your flipped assignment, to have that graded. So make sure that you pay some attention to the back. And remember, if you don't understand something, make that one of the questions you had, but first make sure that you are watching the video one more time. I hope you enjoyed your first flipped assignment, your first flipped lesson. I look forward to talking about this stuff with you guys in class next time we see each other.